Okay, so today's tomato review is going to be on the black From Tula tomato. Okay, so this tomato is called the black From Tula. I wrote it on there. I'm not quite sure if that is the legitimate name for it, but that was the name of the seed pack that I got when I bought the seeds for this tomato several years ago. So I'm not that familiar with the country or the town or the state of Tula, wherever that may be. I'm sure maybe some of you might know more about that than I do. You please comment below if you know more about it. But this tomato is called the black From Tula tomato. This is a wonderful tomato. I've been growing this tomato for several years. This is like one of the first tomatoes that I bought. I bought like 20 or 30 varieties of tomatoes when I first moved out here with seeds. This was among one of those, but I don't know if I grew it the first year I was growing all those seeds. This tomato has been a delicious tomato for all those years being. Now, this tomato sometimes has different characteristics. Sometimes this tomato gets very dark green shoulders. I guess it depends on the amount of sunlight or how much it ripens. It almost looks like a Paul Robinson tomato a lot of the times. You can't almost tell a difference between them. But this one, a lot of the times, will just form these light green shoulders instead of dark green shoulders like the Paul Robinson tomato. It's a very nice purplish pink color. It's a dark pink, almost purple color, and like I said, it's got that nice grading of light green going right into that plush purple, and then it's beautiful purple on the bottom. This is a gorgeous tomato, guys. This really truly is. So here's the inside, and as you can see, it's got most of the seeds are firmly attached to the rind here, but like on this side you could see some detachment from the rind. I could just simply be the plant got sick early this year. It ended up with tomato wilt, and it got late blight, and it just really took a beating towards the end of the year. Many diseases attacked it all at once, so that may have something to do with that detachment from the rind. That could mean that part of the tomato or most of the tomato tend to be a little dry or chalky, but knowing this tomato and how it's been with me in times past, it tends to be a very moist, good sauce cooking tomato. And with saying that, you can see how the center part of this has a lot of meat in the center. This is a very good sauce tomato. This will thicken up your sauce and give you a nice, thick, creamy tomato sauce. It'll redden up very nice, give a nice, rich red color. You can see there is wilding in the rind in some spots. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know if I could pick this up on the camera. Really hard to see on this camera, and the lighting in here is just not right for doing what I do, but it looks like it's good enough for you to be able to see it. Now you can see what a gorgeous looking tomato. Isn't that amazing looking? My mouth is watering. I'm dying to taste this thing, so let's take a bite. Well, this year, very low sweetness, very low tangy. 20 on the sweetness, 20 on the tangy. It's even balanced, but it's just really low. In between that is the moisture. It's just a very moist, wet type of taste or effect. There is a little bit of a tomato taste that carries in after that, but because that tanginess is so low, it doesn't deliver that tomato flavor aftertaste as well. So you can taste it. It's a pretty good aftertaste for a tomato. I like it. I like the after effect from it. Let me take another bite now that my palate's adjusted. Very low on the acid, very low on the sweetness. Like I said, it's almost all moisture. Very little tomato taste to follow that back flavor of it. And it's just really kind of bland this year, but I have had this tomato in past years, and it was absolutely delicious. So it could just be that the tomato vine died early and whatnot. One of these other tomatoes might taste different. Maybe I'll cut one of them open. The skins aren't real tough, but yeah, they do kind of stick around a little bit. You do got to chew them or spit them out. Another interesting thing about this tomato is that the center part is very creamy as opposed to just being loaded with moisture and the moisture just filling your mouth up with moisture. The tomato part creams up right away. All this middle part here really gets creamy. For me, that's not one of the effects that I usually like to feel when I eat a tomato. I generally don't like that creamy mashed potato applesauce effect in my mouth. I really don't really care for that. But I'll cut the other tomato and see if it did the same thing this year. But as far as I remember, these tomatoes generally aren't always like that, so it could just be a growing effect. Let me just finish this. Again, I just cut the other one open. You can see the seeds are detached from the rind. That's not a good sign. I generally don't like that. The pulp in the middle is kind of chalky looking, and that's going to give you that creamy effect. But this is a new slice of a tomato. I mean, it's not bad, guys. You throw a little salt on it. In fact, I'm going to put some salt on this and eat it. It's going to increase it 100%. But eating it raw and just giving you the straight out flavor, that's really the only way to do it, is with nothing on it, really. So let me take a bite of this one, see if it's any better. Or the tanginess definitely increased on this one a little bit. Not a real lot, but it definitely came up. Instead of a 20 on a tangy, it's more like a 30 now. But the sweetness is very low. The sweetness is still around 20, and there's really a big, wet, moist feeling in between that, really. It's just all watery in between it, with that slight tomato undertone carried over from the tanginess. But there's really no sweetness on this tomato. It's very low sweetness. Now, this still would make a wonderful sauce, and I have made sauce with this tomato, but I didn't make a dedicated sauce. I mixed this with a number of other tomatoes, and the mix of tomatoes was absolutely wonderful, an heirloom sauce. But I would like to make a sauce with just this tomato, because you can see that this tomato really does carry all those beautiful attributes to get really a good tomato sauce. And that's really, the more pulp you got in the middle of that tomato, the better of a sauce you're going to get from it. May not necessarily taste as good, but you're going to get a better quality sauce. You're going to get that thick sauce that wants to stick to the noodles and that kind of a thing. I'm the kind of person where I always include my seeds with my tomatoes when I make sauce. It doesn't bother me. Some people need to deseed the tomatoes. I don't know why they do that, but you need them seeds for that tangy flavor. You got to have that tangy flavor in there. You just ruin the sauce, as far as I'm concerned. They take the seeds out and then they put tons of sugar in it. And it's like, where's the tang, man? You know, you ruined the tomato sauce by doing that. And you need that balance, guys. So when you make your sauce, I recommend making it with the seeds. You want to keep that tangy flavor as part of your seeds. If you just take the seeds out and you just make it all pulp, you just, as far as I'm concerned, you ruin the sauce. And that's just my opinion on it, but leave the seeds in there. Now we're going to add a little salt to that. Let's see if we could pick up that viability a little bit on there, because right now this tomato is not ranking very high this year because of that. I hate to say that, but it ain't. The salt definitely brings everything up to par. Without that salt, this tomato by itself is just, I don't know, doesn't work very well. Got to have that salt in there with these low flavored tomatoes. It's not, you can't even eat them. Really, I mean, I wouldn't go back to this tomato knowing all the tomatoes I'm growing and I'm looking for a certain taste tomato that year, and I ate this and it tasted this way. I'm not going to run back to it and eat it. Unless I had salt, I'm not going to waste time with it. I'm going to grab another tomato I like, unless that is the only tomato that's ready to be eaten. Then that's a different story. But what I will say about that tomato is it would make a good slicing tomato to put on a burger with a little salt and lettuce on top of that. Slice those slices really thin. Put 1 or 2 slices on a nice thick hamburger, and then put your lettuce on that. And that would taste really good with it, because it doesn't have a real overwhelming tomato effect. It's not going to be like a really strong tasting tomato, so you're not going to get that strong effect from that tomato. And a lot of times if you're cooking a very high grade ground beef, you don't really want to ruin the taste of the hamburger with tons of lettuce and tomato and ketchup and salt and pepper. And you just want to keep it to a minimum. A little ketchup, a little thin slice of tomato, a little piece of lettuce, and eat your hamburger that way. You want to taste the meat of your hamburger if you're buying high-grade hamburger meat. So this would actually work with a very good high-grade hamburger meat or anything like that. It has a very mild and mutual flavor. It's not really strong in any way. So, But as far as rating the tomato, I'm really going to have to put this at 3 this year. Unfortunately, I was hoping to get at least 2 or maybe even a 1 this year with this. But this year, nah, I'm rating that tomato at a 3 this year. Even the acidic part, even though the acidity came up on this tomato, the detachment from the rind on the tomato is just, that turns me off. I don't like to see that. That's not a good sign. It tells me that the flavor of the tomato didn't develop correctly, maybe some other problems, who knows. But that's telling me that right off the bat, I'm probably not going to be seeing a number 1 tomato here. I could be wrong, but most of the time when you see that, that means that the tomato didn't develop correctly, the flavor didn't develop. There's some things need to be done with it, so it's not just something you're going to throw in the ground. You're going to get great tasting tomatoes your first year. So it may take several years for you to perfect this tomato growing it. But it's not a loser. You grow it anyway, but you're going to have to put something into it. If you're really dedicated into your tomato growing, you're going to have to put some effort into this tomato. You're not just throwing seeds around. You're not just getting tomatoes. You're not just, you're not going to get signature sauces with something with a taste like that. Definitely not. So, unfortunately, I have to rate this at a number 3. And I guess that's about it for the Black From Tula tomato review. And if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And give me a thumbs up for this video if you like it. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care.